On a quiet reservation in New Mexico, a family came face to face with something they could never explain. It began like any ordinary night. But by the end, they were left asking themselves, what would have happened if they had opened the door? Mary had recently moved back into her family's ancestral home, an old, weathered house that had stood on the reservation for generations. The place had been empty for years before she returned, but it carried with it a history. Walls that seemed to whisper with memories too heavy to fade. The house had a reputation in the family. Some said it was blessed, others claimed it was cursed. Relatives remembered strange noises in the halls, shadows moving in rooms that should have been empty. But Mary told herself it was nothing, just stories passed down over time. She brought her teenage son, John, with her. He was still in high school, and though he missed his friends, he followed his mother to this isolated corner of New Mexico. For Mary, it was supposed to be a fresh start. For John, it was just unsettling. The home felt both familiar and strange, safe yet heavy with silence. And at night, when the desert wind howled and rattled the windows, Mary sometimes caught herself wondering if the house wanted them there at all. A couple of months after moving in, Mary invited her cousin Carol to visit. Carol arrived with her 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, a bright and curious little girl with endless energy. Sophie loved exploring the house, running from room to room, asking questions about who used to live there. That night, the 4 of them gathered in the living room. The desert outside was silent, almost unnaturally so. Inside, though, the house was alive again, filled with laughter, conversation, and the warmth of family. For a brief moment, the old place felt less like a relic and more like a home. At around 10 p.m., as their voices faded into the quiet, it happened. A sudden knock. A single, loud, deliberate knock at the back door. The sound froze them in place. It wasn't just the timing, though 10 o'clock at night was strange enough, but no one ever came to the back door. It opened into nothing but a yard of hard dirt and silent trees. If someone had business there, they would have come to the front door. For a long moment, no one moved. The knock didn't come again. The silence stretched thin, like the air itself was waiting. And then, before anyone could react, Sophie jumped up, innocent, curious, fearless. She darted across the room, her little feet pounding against the wooden floor. By the time John scrambled to stop her, she had already opened the door, and in the porch light, her small voice rang out, "There's a man at the door." Mary and Carol shot to their feet, hearts hammering. John stood frozen, staring at the figure outside, his voice unsure as he shouted back, "Mom, it's a priest." And he was right. A man stood on the back steps, dressed in black with a white clerical collar. His face was pale, unreadable, his body still. The only barrier between him and the family was the thin mesh of the screen door. But something was wrong. His eyes didn't blink. His skin looked too smooth, too stretched, like a mask stretched too tight over bone. Mary's stomach dropped. Instinctively, she reached out and locked the screen door. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Can I help you?" The man's response was chilling in its simplicity. "Let us in." Mary blinked. "Us?" And then she saw them. Behind the priest, filling the yard, stood dozens of figures, silent, still, soulless faces faintly illuminated by the moonlight. There must have been 50 of them, shoulder to shoulder, motionless, their eyes locked on the house. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They looked as though they had been placed there, statues frozen in the night. The priest spoke again, his voice lower, sharper. "Let us in." The dread in the room was suffocating. Carol clutched Sophie to her chest, whispering for her not to look. John stood protectively at the door, his hands balled into fists, though he was trembling. Mary's instincts screamed at her. Every fiber of her being told her this wasn't real, or at least not human. She shook her head, voice cracking as she muttered, "Nope, not happening." With trembling hands, she slammed the door shut. They stumbled back, huddled together in fear. Mary rushed to the nearest window, pulling the curtain aside to steal a glance. And in that instant, they were gone. The priest, the crowd, every single one of them. The yard outside was empty, silent, as though nothing had ever been there. The silence that followed pressed down on the house, suffocating and absolute. Carol whispered, "Mary, what was that?" But Mary had no answer. Deep down, though, she knew. Those weren't people, not really. Something evil had come to the door, something cloaked in the image of a priest. And whatever it was, it needed permission to enter. Carol was so terrified that she refused to stay the night. She packed her things, bundled Sophie into the car, and by midnight, their headlights were disappearing down the dark desert road. Mary and John were left alone in the old house. That night, every creak, every groan of the aging wood made them jump. The image of that priest lingered in Mary's mind. His pale face, his lifeless eyes, the words echoing again and again, "Let us in." They never saw the priest again or the crowd that followed him. But the memory of that night never left them. Mary believed they had been tested, confronted by something dark, something ancient that had tried to trick its way inside. Thank God Sophie hadn't opened both doors and let them in. And thank God John hadn't trusted that figure, just because it wore the clothes of a priest. Mary often wondered what would have happened if she had given permission to enter, if her instincts had failed her and the fear didn't overcome her. What if she had let them cross the threshold? Would they have all died that night? Would she and her family have joined that crowd outside, staring blankly forward, motionless, drained of everything that made them human? Maybe that's what those figures were, people who had once said yes, and maybe they're still waiting for others to join them.